Good morning, all. Sorry, pardon our delay, but we got through it. As we enter into this virtual service, please note you'll be muted by our host, which you just did. If you wish to speak during announcement and/or joys and concerns, please go to the participants icon, click on the raise hand button. A blue hand will appear by your name. When I call on you, you can hit the unmute me button and speak. Click the lower hand button and the mute me button when you're finished. Remember, do not unmute yourself until I call on you. Thank you. Also, if you are not already in speaker view, seeing only me next to the slideshow, then click on the speaker view button near the upper right part of your screen. Now near the top center, find and click the button called View Options. You should get a short pull down menu. At the bottom of the pull-down menu is an option called side-by-side mode. Click on that, then adjust the proportion of the slideshow and me as you wish. We recommend making the slideshow 2/3 of your screen. Remember, you are in control of the size of both the speaker and the slideshow images. As we enter into this service, you may find your spiritual path, knowing that dozens of fellow congregants who themselves are each on their own paths as well are with you, offering support, virtual Zoom companionship, and love. Mary will now light our chalice. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flame within us and the community. Before we start the hymn, let me remind you to leave yourselves muted. This technology does not sync everyone precisely when speaking or singing together. We know it does not feel the same as when we are together, but we want you and whoever is with you to sing with Jan or Mary as big and loud as you like. Make it a joyous experience. So let's sing the opening hymn, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire, number 34.
Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess and striving so my love profess, but not begin by love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are free.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us today. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak in our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with the 7 UU principles. Today's service centers around the second principle, We affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Compassion is something that we can easily act on individually. We can demonstrate openness, give people respect, and treat people with kindness on our own. But we need one another to achieve equity and justice. It points us to the larger community. It promotes collective responsibility. It reminds us that treating people as human beings is not simply something we do one-on-one, but something that has systemic implications and can inform our entire cultural way of being. My name is Randy Schwalbe, and I am your worship associate this morning. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're glad you joined us this morning under these challenging circumstances. If you are not on our mailing list, please visit our website at www.uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all of our activities. Also, the membership committee invites non-members to consider becoming a member of our community. Please contact Janet Cooper or a board member if you are interested. Thank you. And one more item. All of you members of this community are invited to stay after today's service on Zoom to vote on adopting this year's budget. Please stay on after the benediction. It won't take long, I promise. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. Now let us recite the affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another. We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our UU community members and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. For any items that need more explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand button near the lower right of your participant's window. When I call your name, click the unmute me button near the lower left of the participant's window, then speak. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, Amanda.
I hope everybody saw can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I hope everybody saw the announcement in the email that came out that Lori sends out. Thank you, Lori, for including the announcement about testing in the county. There are 2 sites that were authorized by the state, and so there's a contractor. We've only got 2 sites in this county, in Paso and Grover Beach. You have to make an appointment, but please utilize this service. You don't have to have symptoms. If we don't use the services, they're going to shut down at least one of those testing sites, and we need more testing. So please, if you have any opportunity, takes 5 minutes, Grover or Paso.
Okay. Thank you, Amanda, for sharing. Janet Cooper, you may unmute yourself. And
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, I'm juggling computers. Tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, we have our board meeting. If you are interested in attending, please email me. Otherwise, I will see the usual suspects at 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Treva, for sharing. Marcia, you may unmute yourself and share.
Whoops. Mom was just saying that's me, actually, so sorry. Anyway, I just wanted to mention, I've been seeing a couple of commercial announcements or PSAs on the old tube, and they're talking about what's going on with a lot of zoos and so forth, that they're not getting enough, patronage, of course, because of the fact that we're in this lockdown, and that they need to have, shall we say, remuneration so they can feed the animals and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to kind of like mention that, and so that anybody who does love animals, like I do, and all that kind of stuff, and I know a lot of people in this congregation really care about the the natural world, and zoos are kind of like arcs. And if we lose any of that, we lose, diversity and plurality in our natural world. So anybody who wants to give to that kind of a thing, the Santa Barbara Zoo was talking about stuff, but we also have an amazing zoo in Atascadero. It's really small, but it's incredibly diverse. And it even has a red panda, which is really rare, and a tiger and a couple of other things there. So if anybody can give to that, especially our local zoos, and I think the one in Atascadero probably gets overlooked a lot. It's really a neat zoo, and if you haven't seen it, please get down to it when you can, of course. And I just thought I'd mention that to give generously. Thank you.
Jeff, thank you for sharing. Okay. Lou, you may unmute yourself and speak.
We have men's group tomorrow at 10 o'clock on Zoom, as usual.
Okay, thank you, Lou, for sharing. Susan, you may unmute yourself and share.
As Randy mentioned, we will be having a very brief vote at the end. We'd like all the members to stay on at the end of the meeting. And we'll be voting to finalize the 2020 budget, which it seems like we've probably already done this 16 times, but we actually haven't. And we're working from that budget, so we need to formalize it by taking a vote. So it's important that all the members stay on. Thank you.
Okay, next week, Rebecca Hendricks presents Love in the Time of COVID-19. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns bring us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as part of your personal life. But please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship with us this morning. This is a time of community building. And now these collective flames embody the joys and sorrows which may have gone unspoken today, but are also deeply felt in this community. The first of two first readings is from a presentation at the 2013 General Assembly entitled The Teachable Heart, Lay Leadership Formation. Reverend Renee Rakowski spoke these words. One of our theological principles or understandings is that we believe in the priesthood and the prophethood of all believers. So we believe that every member of the congregation has value, has something to give, that we're all theologians, that we're all able to worship leaders, or we're all able to be worship leaders. I think some of the most moving opening words are often by the lay people as we do things. I love lay-led worship. And then the prophethood of all believers, the idea of having a prophetic voice, of learning how to speak theologically for social issues. So part of my understanding is that we want to grow leaders that have these abilities. The second first reading is from What is Small Group Ministry by Helen Zidowecki and Jessica York. Small group ministry is intentional, lay-led small groups that deepen and expand the ministry of a congregation. Two key focuses are intimacy, or building community and deepening relationships, and ultimacy, or the opportunity for deeper spiritual exploration and search for meaning. Small group ministry is also called covenant group ministry because the members in a group make an intentional commitment to one another. Peter Bowden, co-founder of the Unitarian Universalist Small Group Ministry Network, defines small group ministry in Getting Started with Small Group Ministry. He says, at the heart of healthy congregations and life world changing ministries, we find 1, strong relationships, 2, engagement with meaningful issues, 3, leadership and leadership development, and 4, inspired action. Small group ministry contains all 4 of these elements. You can ask, what makes a small group a ministry group? The answer lies in the name itself. Small means a group with a maximum of 8 to 10 people. Groups of this size provide an ideal opportunity to relate on an intentional level. Group is a gathering of individuals, sometimes selected at random, sometimes selected for a specific interest or a characteristic. What separates these groups from others in the congregation is ministry. Ministry is the process or act of caring for another. This relates to the spiritual as well as the physical and emotional well-being of the group's participants. Let us join in a time of meditation, of prayer, and of silence. Let us seek the quiet and the calm, laying aside our struggles. And in the silence, may there be a reverence in our hearts, a thankfulness within our spirit, and a deepening understanding of the meaning of our lives. Let us enter into the stillness. Please come back now. These past 2 weeks, Andy Feigin hosted and facilitated small discussion groups on Zoom. The topic was ministry. He had 6 scripted questions, 3 fixed and 3 open-ended. He will share all that with you in moments, but I wanted to take this opportunity to share with you in the experience itself. First, we wished we could have had included a bigger percentage of the membership, but we were glad to hear from those who did participate. With the exception of one group, all the other sessions were made up of randomly selected individuals. No pairings occurred in this process. And that is an important point with regards to a takeaway I had, having scribed every session except one that I participated in. Andy's wife, Mimi, expertly covered for me. Thank you. My takeaway was twofold. First, the logistics of preparing to go to a face-to-face meeting. You know the routine: bathing, dressing, grabbing a quick bite, then driving to the meeting location, greeting everybody, then having the meeting, saying goodbye with long, lingering conversations, driving home, changing clothes, then finally pouring a glass of wine, could easily consume 4 hours of your day for a 1-hour session. However, a 1-hour Zoom meeting commits exactly 1 hour of your time. Second, a host facilitating open-ended discussions between 4 to 5 individuals of our community, both members and friends, centered around a topic selected from a pool of suggestions made by those who sign up for this program. This idea, currently with no name, is not, and I repeat, not a replacement of the men's and women's group, the Chalice Circle, the We Care program, or any activity sponsored by the Congregational Life Committee. Additionally, there is no deliverable, just 4 to 5 folks talking to each other, learning and becoming closer to each other who would otherwise remain isolated or in his or her own clique. Let's please join in singing Spirit of Life, number 123.
Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Thank you, Mary. Today's sermon by Andy Feigin is titled, Is Something Missing? Our Congregation's Answers. Andy Feigin joined the UUCC in 2012. At that time, he and his wife, Mimi, were living bicoastally between Cambria and Huntington, New York. And by joining the UUCC, Andy became bi-congregational as well, since he was already a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Huntington. Having moved here full-time this past June, Andy has achieved monogamy at the UUCC. Well, we were going to call the officials eventually. But it was through his experiences of life, some of the time with our lay-led congregation here in Cambria, and some of the time with the minister-led congregation in Huntington, that Andy began to ponder many of the issues he has been sharing with us from this pulpit. Andy.
Thank you, Randy. So this has been quite a process, and many of you have given your time along the way. I thank you for that. Yesterday morning's rehearsal for today's service, with Randy as worship associate, Treva on PowerPoint, Susan, our Zoom host, Mary and Jan for the music. We figured out logistics, we strategized, we shared skills and laughed along the way. It's great working on projects with folks from this congregation, and I highly recommend it to everyone. Since I last spoke with you 3 weeks ago on April 26th, and I'll review that talk briefly in a moment, something excellent happened. Randy alluded to it. In response to my invitation, 5 small groups of UUCC members ranging in size from 4 to 9, 27 members in total, got together to discuss the topic of that April 26th talk. And those discussions were really good. Caring, intelligent, heartfelt, sincere, respectful. Participants connected, brainstormed, and cooperated in the course of those sessions. And they came up with a lot of great ideas while sharing their honest feelings about their personal spiritual paths. The groups were formed randomly, simply based on individuals' availability, but in spite of that, the talks felt intimate. Like today's service, they were all done via Zoom, with groups small enough in size so that their faces easily fit onto one screen. Truth be told, this medium is really excellent for that type of gathering. It was a chance to be together during this time of sheltering at home and social distancing. There's a joy and there's a drama in exploring aspects of our faith. We experienced that in these meetings. I want to thank Randy for being our scribe. He took copious notes during all but one meeting when he got to participate as a member. And as he said, my wife Mimi volunteered to scribe for that one. So special thanks to Randy and Mimi. Personally, my love of this congregation was once again renewed in the process of hearing from many of you. We are all so fortunate to be surrounded by each other's loving, caring, and passionate devotion to Unitarian Universalism and to the UU community of Cambria. Back on April 26th, I gave a talk titled, "A Lay-Led Congregation, Is Something Missing?" I told you about a proposal I made to our Board of Trustees regarding the formation of a committee on ministry. I felt that as a lay-led congregation, we might benefit from some sort of spiritual leadership, guidance, direction. I talked about the meaning of ministry and how we already have many ministries in our congregation, but that we sometimes seem to lack a unified purpose and direction. I asked us to think about what we may be lacking, given that we are lay-led, all volunteer, without professionally trained spiritual leadership. So, following that talk, we met and discussed the topic. First of all, we gathered some simple data. Before asking the first 3 questions, I reminded the groups that even though they referred to minister, changing from lay-led to minister-led was not in the cards for the UUCC. We're just gathering data. So we began, and let me share my screen. We began with the first question. One more adjustment. I don't want to look at myself. Have you ever been a member of a religious organization led by a religious or professional, a minister, a priest, a rabbi? On a scale, so the responses were, yes, 23 folks, 85% of those surveyed. No, 4, 15%. So the vast majority in their lifetimes have belonged to an organization led by a minister of some kind. How much do you feel the need for a minister in your life now, in your life at this time? Randy put together a chart that looks like this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel the need for a minister? 8 of us said not at all, 0. And you can see the range going up to a 7 out of 10. That was the most anyone felt for the need to have a minister in their lives, but there were quite a few of those. We are scattered across the spectrum, with not at all being the majority or the most chosen selection. Then I asked, in the past 5 years, have you consulted with a religious professional for personal reasons? 11 said yes, that's 41%, and 16 said no, 59%. So we have a majority who have not consulted, but not a huge majority, 41%, a significant minority. Getting back to how much do you feel the need for a minister in your life? Of those who had never had a minister in their lives, they answered, 4 of them answered 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3, and 5 out of 10. Of those who had had ministers in their lives prior to the UUCC, 6 of them, as I said, answered that they had no desire, 6 of those. And you can see it scale up to that high 7. So 6% of those who had had a minister in the past had no desire for one now. 24%. 40% kind of had a middle range of 1 to 3.5. And then 36% had a significant feeling of the need for a minister in their lives. Slide 11, for the 23 members who have consulted with a religious professional in the past 5 years, I'm sorry, of the four who have, 4 members who have never had a minister, 0 have consulted. And then 23 of the members who have had a minister in the past, 11 have consulted with a professional in the last 5 years, 12 have not consulted. So in the past 5 years, have you consulted with a religious professional for personal reasons? Just to review, 11 said yes, 41%, 16 said no, 59%. If we look at this in a different way, I had fun with my graphs here. The red folks are those who have consulted. The red bars represent folks who have consulted. The blue bars represent folks who have not consulted but had a minister in their past. So you'll see the ones who consulted, I got that opposite. The red bars represent people who have had no, let's get this right. Sorry. Looking at it in 2 different ways, of those who consulted represented by the red columns, logically, most of them rated higher on wanting a minister in their lives. That's the point. But there were few outliers down there at 2.5% desire to have a minister in their life, but they have consulted. And in reverse, those who did not want a minister or a religious professional in their lives were less likely to consult with one in the past 5 years. Finally, for just having fun, I created a word cloud out of the copious notes that Randy wrote up. And I'll give you a moment just to look at the most common words that came up, the words that came up most frequently. Ministry and minister are had the most presence. Sort of in the mid-range, spiritual and committee and community got frequently referenced. And then just to do another word cloud for fun, this one's prettier with all the words that were spoken and how frequently they were spoken. The bigger they are, the more they were spoken. So that's it for the data. Now for some thoughts and feelings that were expressed, with the caveat that in total, we met for over 5 hours of discussion, and I'm condensing this down into about 15 minutes. To start off the discussions, I asked everyone to describe what ministry with a lowercase m means to them. Many folks chose to speak about how they feel about ministers they have known, and that was fine, but I did try to steer the conversation to talk about ministry in the broader sense of the word. The topics of help and service came up frequently within the discussion of ministry. Ministry is a lot about helping each other, being of service to each other and to our community, being in service as a way of life. Committees were frequently seen as ministries, given all the work they do to give our UU life meaning and structure. Our worship committee, our board of trustees, social justice, the ad hoc We Care committee, and on and on. Small groups such as the women's and men's groups and the occasional childless circle were also identified frequently as ministries. A strong desire was expressed for everyone to have and feel a social as well as spiritual connection through our ministries. In addition, ministry should lead us to an expanded awareness and understanding of UUism. For those with experience at having an actual minister in the past, they cited many of the benefits that having a minister can bring. Help for a family of a severely ill and needy congregant. Ministers can provide formal organization and structure, especially in a UU congregation where there are not that many limits or rigid structures. Ministers can help when a congregant is having personal problems, a safe, confidential resource. They can help leading classes in UUism, providing a center for the congregation, and resolving conflicts within the congregation. But others who had had ministers in their past reported negative experiences or felt badly about how ministers can affect their experience. Too much certainty, too much guidance of the congregation along a narrow or particular path. Maybe they are too driven. Some ministers were accused of maladministration, harassment, and even abuse of their power. Too many had oversized egos, as if they were superior to the members of the congregation. Too many can end up being a mismatch with the congregation. Choosing a minister is a kind of a crapshoot, and you don't always get it right. And cults can form around a minister, kind of dividing the congregation. Several times in our groups, the discussion of therapy and whether or not a minister could be looked to in working out one's personal issues. Some see psychotherapy and spiritual guidance as very different things, but others express the feeling that the two overlap, that therapy is a spiritual as well as a behavioral pursuit. That's food for an entirely separate talk, a very important one. How much does our spiritual life and our psychological life overlap? Are they one and the same, or should they be completely separate? But ministry was also described as simply helping. One member was experiencing a bad emotional moment following a service and remembers someone sitting next to them for 5 minutes without speaking a word, just providing comfort. That's a ministry. Back to the central question that's been posed, is something missing? There was much expression of satisfaction with our congregation and much praise for how we are doing right, for what we are doing right now and how we're doing right now. But there were also some significant examples of what people felt might be missing from where we are and where we've been. So here's a representative list of things members said might be missing. Structure. There may be a lack of structure. Positive inclusion of new members into the community, onto committees. Lacking an encouragement of new members to join in and become a part of the whole. New members can feel left out. They can feel intimidated by longtime and founding members' ownership of the congregation. A spiritual professional's guidance might be lacking. We might be missing someone to assist with conflict resolution. We might be missing classes that train us to neutralize hostilities. We might be missing a strong connection to what one person referred to as the mothership, the Unitarian Universalist Association, the UUA. And I'll add a strong connection to our regional Pacific Southwest District. I wonder how many of you are familiar with the Pacific Southwest District and this logo. To the best of my knowledge, we do not currently have a designated liaison to our UU district office. These two central bodies representing our faith offer a treasure trove of resources regarding not only the administration of UU congregations, but also ways in which congregations can more deeply pursue our chosen faith. We need to go deeper, some felt, into what one member described as pounding only the 7 principles in UU history. We need to go deeper. We might be missing someone who can lead weddings or funerals. We're missing new blood in many of our committees. They have grown stagnant in some cases. They need new energy, new ideas. Long-standing committees need someone or something to give them an extra push. Some felt we are missing a mediator available to manage conflict within the community. Following the discussion of is something missing, I would ask the same groups How would you suggest we fix what's missing? After all, that's what this whole project is about. How to make us better, stronger, more loving, and more caring, more inclusive, a more spiritual community. Here are some of the thoughts and suggestions broken up into categories. First, the category of personal growth. It was said we should keep an organic community approach rather than a fixed approach. We should have more small group discussions. They increase awareness of our needs. We need to teach ourselves to be better at addressing what is missing. We need to encourage people to invest your time and your heart. Once you invest in something, you feel more involved. We should do better at getting more people involved, more religious education. And we need to learn how to get along without having to necessarily agree. And that goes along with improving listening skills and avoiding judgment. When something hurtful is said or done, we need to learn to take a deep breath and then work through it. Others said we need to stay as we are, with the understanding that, quote, solutions can require a little bit of a struggle, but it happens. And that individual prefers it that way. In terms of the small group approach to fixing what's missing, the ideas were to incorporate more small group discussions into our community as a fundamental way of staying strong and on course. Add to already successful men's and women's groups and the Chalice Circle, for example. Assure that groups are diverse, confidential, but not cliques, and that they strive to deepen our spiritual growth. There was significant discussion regarding how the small groups would be assembled and guided. We would benefit from some research on small group behavior to assure positive results. Another approach is the committee approach, I'm going to call it. Let's start with the committees we already have. Have you read our UUCC Operations and Procedures Manual? All of our members to be of standing are all of our members to be of standing committees and what they do. Do all our members understand what committees do and what committees exist? The Worship Committee, the Congregational Life Committee with membership, hospitality, caring, and covenant subcommittees, religious education, social and environmental justice, operations committee with those 5 subcommittees, and the nominating and elections committee. We need to reinvigorate the Congregational Life Committee. One member said it should be the caring arm, but many of the people who were active on it have left the community, so they haven't been meeting. The committee needs members to step up to chair and reactivate and keep the good work of the ad hoc We Care Committee by incorporating it into the Congregational Life Committee. The RE Committee, the Religious Education Committee, needs to expand to provide more opportunities to explore our faith and our personal growth. And there's still the possibility of forming a committee on ministry with alternate names like Ministry Circle or others. In general, if we choose to form any kind of new committee, we need to be very careful choosing who will be on it and what its duties will become. That's an important point that was brought up by the congregation. There's a lot more, but my time is limited. I hope you'll not be surprised or disappointed when I say that there's no simple, obvious, single answer to the question, is something missing? As the charts showed, and as the results of our discussions indicate, in perfect UU style, we are of many opinions. But I will suggest 4 paths forward that feel right for our congregation and at the same time achievable. Number 1, take advantage of the committees we already have, which are meant to answer many of the needs members brought up. Invest in them and get members to step up and lead them with vigor. Newer members, please step up. Either share skills and knowledge that you already possess or dive in knowing that you will have the love and support of the congregation. Number 2, design and adopt a program of ongoing small discussion groups in which as many members as possible will participate. Number 3, get district and national UUA ambassadors appointed to actively communicate with our larger faith organizations and the resources they offer. Resources for which we pay significant membership fees. They are there for us if we take advantage of them. And finally, a little more out on a limb, people felt that it would be beneficial for us to consider developing a council, call it an advisory council or a wisdom circle, or even to be clever, a wise council, wisdom, integrity, spirituality, and education. Perhaps 3 people, not members of the UUCC, but selected from the outside speakers who we've come to know, trust, and respect, who have come to know us. Stephen Lloyd Moffat would be a prime example. These folks would agree to be available to counsel, advise us as a congregation, and help in conflict resolution. Based on our discussions with these 4 goals, I believe that our lay-led congregation can grow and answer the question I first posed to the board almost 2 years ago. Is something missing? Thank you. Randy, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Thank you very much. Normally at this time, we receive offerings from our congregants. However, due to the virtual format of this service, we invite you to make your offering in one of the methods shown on the slideshow. Enlarge the slideshow tile to see how to do this. These methods will also be posted in the newsletter and on the UUCC website itself. Please make note of this and please make the effort to send an offering. Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Our thanks for any gifts given and received for the work of this community. Now, let us sing the doxology.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue.
Please join in singing in the closing hymn, Gather the Spirit, number 347.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power.
again. Now, let us recite the valediction. Extinguish the flames of these candles, and we know that the light of truth and love and the warmth of this community will go with us until we meet again. Okay. Could you extinguish the- Please move your arrow to the top right of your screen to find the gallery view button. Click on it now to see everyone. Andy?
And now for the benediction by words by T.S. Eliot. What we call a beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Go in peace.